Welcome to the Audio Armor setup tutorial. I will first go over the quick start setup and then into changing settings and adding your own sounds. You will need to purchase an Anker Nano power bank and a Minirig 4 to complete the setup. They are available from the links in the description. The harness comes pre-assembled, with the Audio Armor device, USB cable and audio cable pre-installed. Start by slotting the power bank into its holder, making sure to put the USB port side towards the hole on the side of the holder, and the curved side facing up. Next, slot the Minirig 4 into its holder and push down to make sure it is secure. Connect the audio cable into the Audio Armor device and into the top 3.5mm port on the Minirig. Connect the USB cable into the power bank and into the Audio Armor device. You can now put the harness on. You will likely need to adjust the side straps to fit your body. The harness should feel secure but not super tight. Snap the strap hooks through the holes at the bottom of the front harness plate. Once the harness is sitting comfortably, you can press the power button on the Minirig to start hearing the system. Adjust the volume using the buttons either side of the power button. You have two demo presets with the system. This one is the Rigor Mortis preset, which is a zombie type character. Standing still, you will hear an idle breathing sound. By moving your body around, you will hear the body texture kick in. Body texture increases in volume depending on how fast or slow you are moving. Start walking around. You will hear heavy footsteps as your feet hit the floor. You will also notice the idle breathing has changed into low growls. This is the walking trigger. When you stop walking, the sound will transition back to idle. The final sounds are the front and back triggers. These are done by tilting your torso forward or backward at a specified speed. You don't need to be jolting your back to trigger these, just a fast, smooth movement. The front trigger is a short grunt, and the back trigger is a long roar. These sounds will interrupt the walk or idle sounds, which will then kick back in once the trigger sound is finished. If you managed all that, you can now operate Audio Armor. Let's move on to editing sounds. First, remove the harness. You may want to switch off the speaker during this, as it can make a bit of a racket as the device is moving around. Remove the device cover and single-click the middle button at the bottom of the screen. This will switch on the screen, showing you the current firmware version, preset select, and the control buttons. The screen is on a 10-second timer from the last button press, so if the screen goes black, don't panic, just click the middle button again and scroll to where you were. Let's start with preset select. Here is where you would scroll through all the presets you add to the device. Currently there are only two, Rigor Mortis and Wind Up. Wind Up is a creepy old wind up doll sound with a music box, mechanical movements and a crank sound on the back trigger. To load it, simply click the middle button, wait for it to load, and you're good to go. Let's go back to the Rigor Mortis preset and edit some of the settings. By scrolling with the left and right buttons, we can see the different settings pages for body texture, steps, idle/walk, and front/back. Body texture has the most parameters for control. Firstly, there is volume, with 5 being the loudest, 1 being the quietest, and 0 being off. Next there is low vol, which you can use if you want the body texture to always remain on. By setting this volume at low volume, you can still have volume control, or you can push it all the way up to have a constant volume. Next is T-Sense and I-Sense. This stands for turn sensitivity, which is the angular velocity of your torso, and impact sensitivity, which is the jolt in your body from footsteps. By adjusting these values, you increase or decrease how easily the peak of your movement is hit. So low values will have a large dynamic range requiring faster movements to peak, and high values will peak with small movements. Next we have attack and release. This controls how quickly the volume changes up and down, so if you want quick sharp changes in sound, set both of these low, or if you want long smooth changes, set these to high. Finally, we have warp. This is what you heard with the wind-up doll preset. As you increase this value, the starting speed playback of the sound will lower. This is linked to the same controls as the volume, so as you increase movement, the playback speed will also increase. This can be used to the extreme like with the wind-up preset, or can be used as a subtle change in pitch for complex textures. That's the hard page done and out the way. Let's move on to steps. There are only two settings here, the volume control and the sensitivity control. It is unlikely you will need to change the step sensitivity, as maximum sensitivity tends to work for most people. However, if you feel like you're hearing loads of false step triggers, try lowering the sensitivity until it works for your movement type. Next we have idle and walk. Along with volume controls, we have crossfade and walking interval. Crossfade adjusts how long the fade between the idle and walking sounds are, so 1 will be an immediate change and 5 will be a long smooth transition. Walking interval sets how long after your last step it takes for the walking sound to transition back to the idle, with 1 being 750 milliseconds and 5 being 3 seconds. Finally, we have front and back settings, which is just more volume and sensitivity controls. One final note for settings is calibration. The device is calibrated during manufacturing and is unlikely to need adjustment. However, if you have noticed the body texture sound to be more weighted to one side, or the sound isn't fully switching off when it should, then you may need to do a quick calibration. To do this, remove the device from its holder, set it flat on a table, and plug in a USB cable. During the startup screen, hold down the middle button until the calibration screen appears. Leave the device still while the timer counts down. The calibration is now stored and should have resolved any issue you heard. That's all of the settings covered. Let's move on to the final stage, adding your own sounds. Firstly, unplug your device and remove the SD card by pushing it in and pulling it out. Load the SD card onto your computer. On the top level card, we have the presets folder, the update folder, and the manual. Let's quickly go over updating the device. First go to dreadnoise.com and click on Audio Armor. At the bottom of the page, there is the latest firmware available for download. As of release of this video, this will be the current version you are using, but let's download this just so you know what to do in the future. Once downloaded, unzip the folder, take the file, and put it onto the update folder on your SD card. You can now eject the SD card, put it back into the device, and power on. You will see the update screen appear and a progress bar. The update will complete, followed by a device restart, and you're good to go. On to making your own presets. Let's take a look at what is in each preset folder. There is the sample folder, the config file, which is where the setting parameters are stored, and the converter program, which is used to quick convert WAV files into the correct format for Audio Armor. That being 44.1 kHz, 16-bit, mono. This program unfortunately only runs on Windows PCs, so if you're on a Mac, you will need to format your files manually using audio editing software. In the preset folder, we have each of the different trigger folders laid out. Each folder can hold up to 30 files, apart from body texture, which can only play one looping file. To make your own preset, first copy and paste one of the existing presets and name it whatever you like. You can choose to either keep the config file if you want the same settings as the other preset, or delete it to return it to default settings. Now, to double check all these files are in the correct format, I'll click the converter program to run. A command prompt box will appear to show the progress, and that's it sorted. Now I can eject and put the SD card back into the device, power on, select my new preset, and hear how it sounds. That is everything you need to get going with Audio Armor. For finding good sample packs to create your characters, I would highly recommend looking through asoundeffect.com, which has hundreds of different sample pack creators. Or for premium sounds, I would heavily recommend Boom Library, which has some incredibly useful creature sounds, such as alien life, creature humanoid, mutate organic, and monsters and beasts. If you have any questions at all, feel free to send me an email at liam@dreadnoise.com and I'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for watching.